is Cassandra Williams from Educational Innovation 360. This is Teaching Tips Monday. Really excited about our focus today. It's on culturally responsive classrooms. Hopefully I can tell you some of the things that's important, the definition, and why it matters in 2025. So first we have to think of the definition. Thinking about Geneva Gay, her definition really highlights getting students background, understanding it, and just acknowledging cultural knowledge, their experiences, and their perspective. Their lens is very important to make their learning much more powerful in the classroom, right? And so really understanding that the classroom is an environment where it's all about diversity and it's seen as an asset, right? And then being able to intentionally, in our lessons, in our everyday practices, draw on our students' identity and experiences to shape instruction, that's where it's at. We know that it matters. While about 50% of our students that are in schools now are students of color, 79% of our teachers are still white, there is a divide and culture gap. So research shows when students see themselves, really understanding the percentage, but when students see themselves reflected in the curriculum and the materials and the teaching, man, it drives higher engagement, achievement, and then a true sense of I'm walking in this classroom and I feel like I belong. So we have our core components of culturally responsive classroom, really thinking of an asset-based mindset, regard students' diversity as just a strength, not just a strength, as an empowering strength, and embrace the different languages that are spoken in your classroom, the histories that they bring, and the family background. Really understand the culturally relevant pedagogy and curriculum, thinking about what are the lessons, what are the discussions that you're having in your classroom that include the multiple perspectives, and it's not just the mainstream, but from all cultures present in the classroom, right? And really being able to do that extra research if your curriculum does not provide that. And thinking of inclusive communities, thinking of our verbal, our nonverbal messages that may be different from cultural norms, like our call and response, even the power of the griot, the storytelling that is so enriched in some of our classrooms. And I love to go in classrooms to hear that. And then, of course, having these high expectations with support for our students, right? All students are expected to achieve at high levels, right? With support and scaffolds tailored to their needs and their learning styles, right? This gets me so excited because this is what I so hardly believe in. So let's look at the current trend and best practices. One of the things that we are definitely working on as educators, and I hope you're working on it too, is what are we doing to pronounce names correctly, to honor our students' identity? What are we doing to embrace home languages, create space for bilingualism? How are we using multicultural and diverse, content across different subjects? Oh my goodness, this makes me so excited. And what are we doing to even leverage technology? How are we using technology in your classrooms for broader access and student agency? And then how are you highlighting student voice? We want to make sure that all students are heard. How do we include the feedback and decision making from all students in our class? And then, of course, what are we doing to just focus on positive framing, affirming feedback, and just building a total growth mindset? And I say this for teachers. What are we doing to make sure from our bulletin boards, making sure there's diverse faces, multicultural images, real world examples from context of what is happening in today's world, texts that are brought in that reflect identities in your classroom. I don't know if you can tell, this is my jam. I love this. So with the research supporting culturally responsive, really thinking about, culturally responsive teaching, just improves just overall academic outcomes, helps with critical thinking. It builds confidence for our students. It gives just subject comprehension for all of our students, being able to go deep in every subject because they're able to bring experiences, right? And so the benefits go far beyond, just underrepresented groups, right? It improves our classroom experience for everybody involved. So here's some common misconceptions and myths. So the myths, it's just about adding diverse books and celebrating holidays, right? But with the reality, we know that it requires ongoing reflection, especially you as a teacher and educator, and things change on it. We have to understand our biases, understand our pedagogy, understand the curriculum. And so all this is ongoing. So there's nothing kind of set in stone. Another myth, it kind of prioritizes certain groups. And I think the reality is, true responsiveness really teaches just talks about how do we lift every student's voice and to celebrate every student. Another kind of myth is like, it's a quick fix, or let me just check off the box. We did this diversity thing, right? It's an isolated initiative. But the reality is to be honest, like real responsiveness is truly integrated in every aspect of teaching and learning. So for just social justice discussions, thinking about rooted in everyday lives, community-related projects, so we're bringing in family, we're linking learning to neighborhoods and communities. We're incorporating like just different community styles, like from the church, the call and response, the music, the clapping, the dancing, the storytelling. All that's really not, great to incorporate. There's reflections that we need to have, with staff. I mean, there's so many things you could do in your classroom to just incorporate culture in every day. So I think I was super excited. I want to talk about some examples, what are some things that's happening right now? Really being able to understand, how powerful can it be to have a social justice demonstration, or how students understand what's going on in the current context, and because they're living these experiences, and they can have discussion and talk about what's going on in their community. We have community related projects, really understanding how the projects are linking to families, communities, and neighborhoods. Then we have, how do we incorporate the community styles and the music and the storytelling. That I love it. Now, with this, we have to have reflection questions. What are you asking yourself? And I think here are some great reflection questions that we should consider when we're embedding culturally responsive teaching in our practices. One is like, how do we learn about our students' culture? Like, what are we doing to reflect? What are some things we can work on in our teaching practice? Do we have the resources, or strategies? Do our resources and strategies to truly truly reflect and just honor this diversity or our society that we're serving? Where are some of our growth areas, right? We're talking about our growth areas. Am I truly being culturally responsive? What are some things that I can do to, understand my community that I serve? And then, of course, what can we do to where every student feels kind of represented and valued? Like, what am I doing as an educator to empower my students to be their authentic self and to show up every day as their authentic? So I usually don't include that, but of course, when we're talking about the kind of power players, here are some of the power players when we're talking about culturally. So really thinking about, and moving forward, what do we have to do? Think about what are our next steps. How do we develop a professional learning community? So work with people that are in our building that are, excited about culturally responsive practices. Audit. I'm always about audit your own curriculum and resources to see where you have representation and inclusivity. Thinking about also involving your families. What are your family members, let them share their cultural knowledge. Come bring it to the classroom and to school, and then one of the things I love to say is understand that this is an ongoing thing. It's evolving. There's no finish line. This keeps going. It's continued growth over time. I want to say we should be embedding this in everything we do. Culturally responsive teaching is about really understanding the whole child, kind of like the Jesuit schooling, and thinking about, when we are truly culturally responsive, we do this work authentically, and both our teachers and our students just, they just do well. All right. I hope I'm off my soapbox. I'll talk to you later. Let me know if you want more on culturally responsive teaching, culturally responsive practices, and I'll make sure I give it to you. Talk to you later. Bye.